is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Thursday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys here today. I've never taken this angle on this show, but I'm excited to talk about this because this is a problem that I'm pretty sure everybody who produces goods or out there is going to deal with at some point. What do they do with their inventory if it's coming up to like that dreaded expiration date and it's still sitting in a warehouse somewhere? How do you get rid of it? Where do you go? And all of that. But before we bring her up, you guys, just a quick reminder. Yesterday, our once a week newsletter dropped. That's right. One day a week drops. But I need you to go to thefreightcoach.com if you want to register for it. I do that because I don't want to auto sign anybody up, because if you don't want to receive the newsletter, you're not on it or anything like that. But again, we only talk about freight on there. We talk about rates, the market, all of that fun stuff. Again, if you want to get in on it, thefreightcoach.com, though, check it out. But with that being said, you guys, let's talk about a little excess inventory and some tech behind it. I have Amrita Bhasin on the show today. So thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
Thank you for having me.
No, I'm looking forward to this, and then when you had originally reached out about this and I started doing some research on your company, it is one of those things that literally affects every manufacturer of goods out there at some point, right? And then you almost wonder, well, what do they do with it? It's not like you can just and especially with food grade products and stuff like that, you're not just going and dumping that stuff off somewhere, right? Like there has to be a specific process. And before we get into any of that stuff, though, give us a little bit of background. How did you get your start with all of this?
Yeah, so my name's Amrita, and I got my start in food and beverage liquidation, just kind of learning how to liquidate, learning the industry, the buyers and supplier side. As a result of this, I obviously worked with a ton of different types of people in the freight industry. I worked with shippers, 3PLs, I worked directly with brands, and I got an interesting view into this problem of reverse logistics, which I think doesn't necessarily take center stage at a lot of freight conferences or a lot of freight industry conversations. Now, what our company does is we help retailers, brands, logistics companies, shippers offload and monetize their unsold inventory. So we're really interested in how can we create a market and optimize recovery rate out of this product that's likely sitting in your warehouse and just taking up storage space.
So how much, how much money do you think, and this might be just a general statement, on an annual basis do companies lose in inventory that goes bad, or it's just sitting there product, and they just end up just discarding it because they have no idea what to do with it?
So we estimate that overstock, unsold inventory, basically inventory that does not sell at the primary market, which is typically like retail or e-com. This is an $800 billion problem, we estimate, in the United States. Research actually shows that a quarter of all inventory does not sell. So a quarter of everything, a quarter of furniture, of your favorite food and beverage brand, of your apparel brand. And there's a bunch of reasons for this, right? Like we see that things like consumables, makeup, food and beverage has expiration dates. So everything is not going to sell by the expiration. And at a certain point, it's better for brands to either liquidate or donate, or if they can't do those, recycle those products. And same with grocery stores and your favorite retail stores. At a certain point, they need to pull products from the shelves if the expiration dates get too close dated.
So obviously technology is going to be a major piece of this. And, so when you founded and started off with Sotira, what, did you and especially with your experience in there, were you seeing there's so much manual processes that are coming along here? How do we build an online presence or a marketplace or something like this to where people can go in and then not have the manual processes that are typically tied inside of transportation?
So the liquidation industry has always existed. Like this is inherently not a new industry. What's new is a few things. So there's very strong regulation that's now being passed with regards to waste. So as everyone knows, the United States has a really strong waste problem, overconsumption problem. And this is important when you look at other European countries that have kind of managed to tamper down their waste, especially at the corporate and enterprise level, which is where most waste originates. So where I'm here located in California, there's legislation, Senate Bill 1383 and Senate Bill 707. And these affect the organic waste industry and the textile waste industry, respectively, which means that a lot of your favorite brands and retailers now need to have a game plan for how they handle overstock. They cannot just dump it, they can't just destroy it or destruct it. Like there needs to be some game plan that is sustainable and ideally from the company's perspective would help them unlock some revenue and recovery rate. The other thing that we see that's unique right now, obviously, is the advent of AI. So with AI, we're able to build and deploy systems in a fraction of the time with a fraction of the cost. What this means is that we can bring together people that may otherwise not be able to meet until like a once a year ASD market show where everyone has to now fly out to the same place and you have to hope that you meet somebody on the floor and you exchange business cards with them, right? Or like Manifest as an example. These conferences still have a place in the ecosystem. They're great, but we see that with technology, there's a more efficient and faster way to bring people together on a regular basis. And this is kind of where the marketplace model comes in, where we're able to connect the buy and the supply side. We're able to get this product moved faster than, again, waiting until like the 1 or 2 times a year trade show where you're able to meet these people in the industry that you wouldn't see on a regular basis.
Do you think that that's possibly the biggest hurdle that a lot of these, we'll just go with CPG and manufacturers are facing right now? It's not necessarily that they're maybe, it is their products not selling at the levels that they were, but they mismanage their inventory. They produce too much. It's just not selling. Do you think that is a bigger threat to a lot of organizations, fiscal future than pretty much, any potential legislation that could be coming down?
It's a good question. So I think like our research shows that 90%, 80 to 90% of CPG brands fail within 2 years. So the fail rate for CPG is very high. In some cases, it's upwards of 90%, right? Depending on what you quantify as a failure. And there's a couple of reasons for this. And one reason is mismanaging forecasting, right? Like how do you forecast your inventory? How do you know what to purchase? We work with brands where they have crazy situations where somebody over ordered like $5 million worth of inventory that's not going to sell, right? So we do kind of see those blunders that end up costing like tangible revenue. If you think about it, like storing product, moving product is not free. I think a lot of Americans don't completely understand the nuance behind this, that even when a customer, like say me as a customer goes to a Shopify storefront and I put a product in my cart, but I don't purchase it, that affects inventory forecasting, right? Like all of the models are based on the most optimistic way of people being able to purchase. So when you go in and you don't actually you purchase, but you go to checkout, but you don't purchase, that affects somebody's model. So I think that there needs to be perhaps more education for CPG brands and for the retailers or other supporting entities that they work with on how to forecast more conservatively and in a way that is more efficient for them. So they're not just burning money up front.
So what you're saying is every single time people are going in there, whether it's Amazon or any online marketplace, and they're putting it in their cart, but they're not purchasing, that's effectively taking it out of that company's inventory count. And then it's sitting in the wasteland. That is so like, I'm actually thinking about all the times that I've done that now. And I'm like, I got to stop putting stuff in my cart and then not purchasing it.
It doesn't take it necessarily out of their stock, but it affects their model. It affects all of the inventory forecasting models. They take into account a lot of different things. And as a result, inventory forecasting is really hard. Like even with AI, even with, millions of dollars of software engineering efforts, nobody has really cracked AI forecasting. We haven't seen that it's been really effective for grocery. For example, produce and fresh grocery, where forecasting is really important. Like produce is expensive. It goes bad really fast. We look at categories like avocados and berries, where even in the store, they can go bad fast, right? So, and then we look at, like, again, your favorite, like, vitamin brand as an example, where maybe they have different flavors or different SKUs depending on the seasons. And then apparel, where we've got obviously a huge seasonality to this. Like, we saw early to mid-January, a lot of the winter clothing was already starting to fall into overstock because spring was coming in. So there's a huge constant turnover in SKUs, and no industry has really cracked how to do forecasting in a way that is accurate.
So how does your platform talk to the management software that's out there to flag this stuff? Are you guys working on getting ahead of it? Like kind of like a three-tiered notification, right? Like I set notifications in my phone, for example, for like birthdays, like on the birthday, and then like the week prior, like, hey, buy the gift. So is that kind of how your software talks to, inventory management software or warehouse management software?
So we integrate with WMS systems and storage capacity models. Our customers typically have a combination of both. And then we are helping them oftentimes figure out what they're even trying to clear. So we work with some companies where, I kid you not, their inventory has been sitting in the warehouse for 10 plus years, just collecting dust. It's like that company, that warehouse, like nobody involved in the process knows what they're looking to clear. So when we integrate with their models, we're able to help them figure out, like, this is not moved. Like, this is basically dead stock. Like, it is not even slow moving. It just nobody has purchased in this SKU or this category. It's not even selling anywhere on your storefront. And we have that information, and our system automatically shares it with the top relevant buyers and donation partners. And so we run both processes. Our goal is we want to obviously come up with sustainable solutions that can also optimize recovery rate. So when we're obviously selling to buyers, there's a transaction happening. So brands and logistics companies, 3PLs, are unlocking revenue. When they're donating, they're unlocking a tax write-off. And I want to mention that the US is one of the few countries where these tax write-off rules are actually really nice. Like, as a brand, as a 3PL, like, for example, the UK does not have tax write-off rules like this. And as a result, a lot of entities in the UK don't have the same incentive to donate like in the US. So the laws are actually very favorable when it comes to charitable donations. And so our goal is, all of these donation partners, all of these buyers are out there somewhere. How can we connect them to supply?
So, I mean, this kind of makes me think like, more on like the high end or the premium brands out there. I'm sure a internal fear of theirs is they don't want their stuff to look cheap or discounted or stuff out there. So how are you guys protecting that brand equity in the market?
So we take into account all restrictions. And I think this is where our AI model really comes into play, is like, if we have a brand that, say they're so specific, they're like, we cannot sell in the states of New York and New Jersey, right? Maybe we'll put their product out with a buyer in Idaho, right? Like, just as an example. So whatever the requirements are, if they're looking to export, if they're looking to just stay within certain states, within certain zip codes, certain end demographics of customers, we have a ton of data on that. And we are able to ensure that that your liquidation process is not affecting your brand reputation. So it's something that we think about a lot.
It seems like that would be why a company might choose to sit on that image, kind of like what you were talking about earlier, is like, hey, we've uncovered some stuff that's been sitting in a warehouse for like 10 years. Is that's probably that brand reputation out there in the market. They don't want any discounts associated with their brand. Do you think that that's more of like, with where things are with like online marketplaces and resellers and everything that we're describing right here? Do you think that that's almost like an afterthought for most people? Is they're not necessarily, they're more looking about like, how do I get product fast, right? And I think a lot of brands might overlook, and I could be wrong, but I just, I'm only looking at life through my lens here. When I'm out there purchasing products online, I'm not necessarily looking about like where they're coming from. To be honest with you, it's how fast can it get to my house? That's like the biggest buying decision that I make at this point. So do you think that brand equity is almost a secondary thought for a lot of everyday consumers now?
So for our really big customers, like the really big enterprise customers, the ones who like maybe public companies, we see that their biggest complaint with ever entering the liquidation space, whether it's us or another vendor, is the concern of brand dilution and brand equity. But we see on average across the whole industry, even smaller brands are sitting on product and they're not donating it, right? Like brands of pretty much every category or every size are not donating or not selling their inventory. So from our perspective, it goes beyond the brand dilution question. It's part of it is like these organizations don't know how to offload their overstock. Like we work with 3PLs, we're sitting on stock, and as soon as we reach out to them, they're like, oh, we have so much product we're looking to get rid of, right? Like factories, they'll be like, oh, we have all of this product that we really need to get rid of. So I think it's part of it is more of an education issue and connecting the players that would be relevant to be able to solve this problem. Because with donations, for example, the brand dilution issue is alleviated in many ways. Like even the most luxury brands in the US do donate their products. They do charitable campaigns. So we think that part of it is there hasn't been an existing marketplace or existing system to be able to connect the liquidators and the buyers on that side to brands.
So how are you helping them move their product then? Are you guys working with transportation companies directly, 3PLs, and are you guys more like, I guess kind of like walk me through that, right? Are you guys physically going into the warehouse? Are you guys contracting with companies that physically go in and palletize it, shrink wrap it, and get it out of their physical location to bring it to a liquidator's facility? Or is the liquidators themselves sending in their own teams to do stuff like that?
Yeah. So we work obviously with companies where sometimes we have to help them from their inventory systems figure out what they're looking to clear. Once we identify that, it's shared with relevant buyers or nonprofits on our platform. And then 80+% of what we see in terms of our business on our platform, the buyers will come and pick up for a few reasons. I think typically they are buying large volume. Like we are a platform where you're looking to buy like full truckload. We have brands that come to us with 400, 500 pallets of product. So pretty large volumes. We're not looking at like eaches or units or case quantities. So it's very much large volume. And so say, for example, like you have 10 different locations and you buy 50 pallets of an item and you're looking to distribute with pallet jacks and put 5 pallets in each of those locations where you're looking to sell to an end consumer. That would be a good example. Our goal is we don't because many of these items have expiration dates and the dating may be a concern or a factor. We want to route product exactly to where it's going to end be sold or distributed, whether that's like a nonprofit or a buyer who may be a physical brick and mortar store that's regionally located.
So how are you, just speaking about like expiration dates, right? Because that doesn't just affect food. It affects a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah.
Are you guys then in that transaction ensuring that the product is going to make it to the end user in time to avoid any shelf life issues that are coming along with it? I guess like that would be a concern of mine is it's like, if I'm selling excess inventory to anybody and the expiration date's coming up, is it going to get to the end user? And then it's like, oh, it's already passed. And then they return. Then I wake up one morning and there's 7 truckloads sitting in my yard again.
Yeah. So this is a case by case basis in terms of how states handle expiration dates. And I want to bring up that there's a lot of legislation that's being put out there. And like you said, it affects not just food, but your vitamins, your supplements, things like we see a lot of creatine, obviously a lot of beverages, like cosmetics, makeup is huge in this category, even things like liquid soap, right? Like deodorant, nail polish. Like I think people don't necessarily realize all of the items that have expiration dates, right? People don't necessarily look at that really closely, and people may have expired items in their home that they're still using that they don't even realize. So there's legislation out there to better educate Americans on what the expiration dates mean, right? Like best by versus use by versus sell by. These are all kind of different things, and there is nuance to this. Especially, again, we're not talking about berries or fresh produce. We're talking about like packaged granola or something that typically has months to a year of shelf life. So it's a case by case basis. In certain states, if we have items that are expired, they cannot be sold, but we have permission from the state to be able to get these items donated and distributed. So the 3PL or whoever the supplier is getting a tax write-off, and these items are safely being distributed to people in need. In other states, you're allowed to sell items that are slightly past their best buy because the best buy is not necessarily a hard expiration. Think like granola bars and your favorite protein bars. but there needs to be some sort of warning that says, hey, these items may be slightly past their best by date, just to let consumers know. So we see both situations kind of happening. In situations where you cannot donate or sell product because it has expired, there's really interesting solutions that are kind of in place. We've seen some of these ingredients be used as animal feed. We've seen really interesting use cases of where expired product, especially food and beverage, can be distributed to somebody who can provide value from it. So think about principles of like circularity, right? Like kind of keeping items in use versus having waste and overstock. Obviously for deodorant, which in some cases can be flammable, that may be difficult. But overall, we're kind of looking at how can we use principles of circularity in the supply chain ecosystem where there's currently a lot of waste.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I think that that's what brings so many barriers of confusion to even like your everyday consumer going through a store, right? Is the Best Buy, the actual expert, like what does it actually mean, right? Do you think that there's too many layers of complexity with that might actually cause a issue at the warehouse? Because people are going around and they're like, well, wait a second, this date says this, it's no good by this, because we always, growing up, when I grew up, there was only one date on stuff and it was the expiration date. And it was, so it's like, do you think that we've added layers of complexity and that has since potentially caused an inventory backlog out there because people are not willing to buy stuff because it says Best Buy date and they're confusing that with expiration date?
I think you've hit it exactly on the nose. Like our research shows that the expiration dates are causing a lot of waste, or sorry, the Best Buy dates, the sell by dates, all of these dates that are not explicit, like this item is spoil or is like unsafe, poisoned, whatever people typically associate with Best Buy dates. There's a lot of confusion and it contributes to a lot of waste. And so the state of California, I know as an example, is working on legislation to kind of how can we better rewrite or better explain what these dates mean and better educate consumers, especially in situations like grocery stores where food and beverage is a category where there's a lot of overstock. There's a lot of short dated product. We see that retailers tend to pull items from grocery or retail store shelves at 6 months of dating or under. So if you buy your favorite cereal and you go through like one box a week or one box every 2 weeks, and an item has less than 6 months, it's pretty much going into overstock. It's going into liquidation, but you can still gain value from that. Like if you're that person who eats cereal every single day, less than 6 months of dating, you can consume it before it expires. So we see that there is a lot of opportunity here with this product that is pretty much going to waste and going to landfill in the status quo.
So you guys talk about, on your website about having built-in shipping with a lot of this stuff. So like, how are I would assume, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, that people are out there and they're looking at the overall transaction here if they're going to go in and purchase that inventory. And with a volatile market that we're kind of seeing out there, how are you helping the end buyer of this excess inventory keep their transportation costs down? Because I would assume that would eat up a significant percentage of their product or their profits, if a market flips and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I think freight is probably the biggest barrier to entry to getting product from California to the mid-Atlantic. Like it's a everyday discussion is like, I would love to purchase this product, but the freight is going to kill me, right? The United States is a huge country. It's really requires you to have these localized networks in terms of where you're offloading product to, ideally somewhere that's locally within like a few hour drive, especially if it's like a smaller order. We have API integrations with some of the big freight players, and we're able to get quotes efficiently. We're able to compare these quotes. We look at the cost benefit analysis of one option versus another. So as an example, it's not always just price. Sometimes it's also time. So say that, for example, you would get 15,000 in revenue and the product would be picked up on Friday, versus if you wait till Monday, you're going to get 20,000 in revenue estimated, but you have to hold that product till Monday and you have new product coming in on Monday morning. So at that point, you're pretty much going to hit your cap on your storage capacity. Maybe the cost benefit analysis would show that it's better for you to clear that product earlier and maybe not make as much as you expected, but you get your carrying costs back. You unlock storage capacity, which in a sense is money. Like that's money that we're putting back in your pocket, right? When you have your new SKUs come in or your new inventory come in, space is money in the freight industry, as anyone knows, whether there's space on a truck or there's space in a warehouse. And so our software is kind of looking at this in a nuanced way into how can we get product offloaded as efficiently as possible and in the most efficient way in terms of how we're moving it from point A to point B.
Yeah, you're every CFO who listens to this is like ears are up right now, because that's one of those things that I'm assuming, again, I'm not a CFO, but I'm assuming this is probably two of their biggest expenditures that they're faced with out there is excess inventory, and stuff like that. And then the carrying cost of that inventory, and then the potential transportation cost that's going to come along with it. And it's like, it's on every freight provider out there to talk to their customers and bring the most cost effective way to transport those goods, right? Like you're talking about partial truckloads or even LTL. How many combined truckloads can we do? If it's one, there's 3 buyers on the mid-Atlantic region, right? It's all shipping out of San Francisco. One's in Richmond, one's in Charlotte, one's down in Atlanta. Are we going to 1 pick 3 drop that same truck? That's going to reduce potential damages if it's shipped 3 separate LTLs from all the transloading and everything else that comes along with it. So again, like that's got to be just one of those, it's got to be such a financial drain on so many companies out there. And it's a risk on both ends, right? It's a risk on the seller of the excess inventory and then also the purchaser of the excess inventory that comes along with it, right? Because you don't want to buy $20,000 worth of potential profit and then have half of it damaged and in transit because of, mishandling and stuff like that.
Yeah, when I first got in the liquidation space, I was spending hours on Excel staging freight. Like I'm sure anybody who's been in the space has this experience, right? It is a nightmare staging freight. I feel like the software has not really, the software is basically just Excel and spreadsheets, right? So the system of doing this has not really evolved in years. And it's like, say you have like a beverage brand and you've got a bunch of SKUs, right? Like you've got all of the fruits, like you've just got a bunch of flavors out here, right? You've got a 12 pack, you've got a 24 pack. Maybe you have, like a smaller size bottle and then you have like a little shot size bottle, like whatever the situation is, staging that freight is really hard. Like say you have like a 5 truck transaction, like we're talking about a lot of time and effort that's going into how do we load this truck in an efficient way. So then when we load it, we're basically saving as much time and money as possible, right? That's something that we think about a lot with AI is how can we kind of make these processes that are time consuming and are a hurdle for 3PLs, they're a hurdle for warehouses, whoever is offloading this product to kind of figure out like, how do we stage this? How do we plan to load this physically? Like, is it shrink wrapped? Is it pallet? Like, are the pallets wrapped? Like, how are the pallets stacked? Are the pallets oversized, right? Like an example, containers, if we look at like 10 feet tall, right? But say we have pallets that are 6 feet tall. That's a nightmare. That means that you cannot double stack the pallets, right? You can't put 2 pallets on top of each other because that would be 12 feet tall. So then as the person who operates the container, you are losing money because you have like 4 feet of space on top of that 6 foot tall pallet and there's nothing to put there. You can't put another pallet. So it's a very nuanced, complex kind of conversation as to how do we make these freight processes more efficient. And I think that's where we are optimistic that software and AI can have some value behind this. Obviously, the industry as a whole, like logistics and supply chain, is antiquated. Like we work with people that have done this Excel freight staging process. They've just kind of done it manually. Before that, they were doing it on clipboards for 30 years, and they're kind of used to that process and the amount of time it takes. And it's radical to be able to use a system that automatically computes freight staging for them.
Ah, well said. Amrita, thank you so much for your time today. This is awesome. I love learning about this side of the industry because again, it's like there's so many different angles that people can take in freight. And you are, I would say, one of one to the best of my knowledge of anybody who's handling reverse logistics, liquidation inventory and everything else. And you're building this out. I think you got a great product to go out there to the market. How does anybody reach out to you though to find out more about what you guys got going on?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very responsive through there. If you just type my name in, you should be able to find me. You can go to our website, and if you're looking to learn how you can sell or buy, again, we don't just work with brands on the sell side. We work with a lot of 3PLs, a lot of logistics companies, pretty much anyone that has overstock that you're looking to clear that's sitting in your warehouse. That's kind of where we see the pain originates. So if you're looking to sell or buy, definitely go to our website and check out ways to get registered and get onto the platform to get deals. And then, you can also find me through email. My email is amrita@sotira.co.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. If you guys cannot find them out there at all, hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in contact with them. But that is going to be it for today. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank it on iTunes and Spotify, because if you saw value, that's how your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money.